In the crowded district of Tondo, Manila, where narrow alleys overflow with noise, life, and struggle, a young boy named Eldon de la Cruz grew up knowing hardship more intimately than most children his age. The streets were his classroom, the sidewalks his bedroom, and the sound of passing jeepneys his morning alarm clock. His family had long been torn apart by poverty. His father disappeared years ago, searching for work in the provinces, and his mother worked long hours washing clothes for neighbors just to earn enough for a single meal. Most days, there wasn't enough even for that. Yet somehow, in this unforgiving environment, Eldon carried something extraordinary within him, a voice so pure, so angelic, that it felt like it didn't belong to the world he lived in. His only treasure was a second-hand guitar he found near a junk shop in Divisoria, its wood cracked, strings mismatched, and tuning pegs barely functioning. But to Eldon, that broken guitar was a lifeline, a friend, a companion, and the one thing that made him feel like he belonged somewhere. Every afternoon, after collecting bottles and scrap plastic to sell for a few pesos, Eldon would wander toward the brighter parts of the city. He often ended up in Makati, where tall hotels and shiny buildings made him feel like he had stepped into another universe. One night, with hunger tightening his stomach and exhaustion clinging to his bones, he stopped outside a luxurious five-star hotel whose entrance glowed with golden lights. Inside, people laughed, danced, and enjoyed a world he could only dream of. But outside, Eldon stood barefoot on the pavement, clutching his battered guitar as if it were made of gold. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to sing, "Hotel California." The moment the first notes left his lips, the energy around him shifted. His voice floated through the warm Manila night like a soft breeze, thin at first, but quickly gaining strength, pure, delicate, heartbreakingly beautiful. It was the kind of voice that carried emotion without trying, the kind that revealed everything he had ever felt: loneliness, hope, hunger, courage, and a desperate longing for a better tomorrow. People walking by glanced his way, curious, then stopped completely, unable to move. Jeepney drivers paused mid-conversation. Hotel staff turned their heads from their duties, stunned that such heavenly sound was coming from a child in torn clothes. Even a few guests stepped out of their cars, their expensive shoes clicking on the pavement as they approached. A strange quiet fell over the usually busy street. It didn't matter that Eldon was poor, barefoot, and unknown. In that moment, his voice rose above everything, above poverty, above hardship, above the noise of the city, and it touched the hearts of everyone who heard it. At that same moment, inside the grand lobby of the Makati Hotel, Simon Cowell had just finished a private dinner event with several entertainment executives. He was exhausted from back-to-back meetings, hoping to rest before flying out the next morning. But just as he stepped toward the elevator, a distant voice slipped through the automatic glass doors, soft at first, almost like the whisper of a radio playing far away. It was unusual enough to make him pause. There was something in the tone, something fragile but powerful, that tugged at his attention. He frowned, listening harder, and the voice grew clearer, carrying the unmistakable melody of Hotel California. Simon had heard thousands of singers perform that song, but this one felt different. Raw, painful, honest. He slowly walked toward the entrance, confused but intrigued, and as he stepped outside, the night air hit him along with a wave of pure emotion. There, under the yellow glow of a street lamp, he saw him, a thin, barefoot Filipino boy no older than 12, holding a broken guitar as if it were the most precious instrument in the world. His clothes were torn, his hair messy from the wind, and his face carried the fatigue of a child who had lived far too much struggle for his age. But none of that mattered when he opened his mouth to sing. Simon froze. The voice pouring out of that small body was breathtaking, angelic but aching, delicate but strong. It hit Simon directly in the chest, a feeling he rarely experienced even during global auditions. This wasn't practiced talent. This wasn't showmanship. This was pure survival expressed through music. The boy wasn't performing to impress anyone. He was singing because life had given him nothing but a voice, and he was holding on to it with everything he had. A crowd had already gathered, but the moment they saw Simon Cowell step forward, they parted instantly, creating a clear path between the judge and the boy. But Eldon didn't notice. He was too lost in the world of his own voice, his eyes closed, as if singing transported him away from the hunger, the fear, and the weight of the streets he walked every day. Simon's expression softened in a way almost no one ever saw. His eyes glistened, his jaw tightened, and he took a shaky breath as the boy hit a high note so emotional that it felt like the whole world stood still. He wiped the corner of his eye quickly, trying to hide the tear that escaped, but he couldn't disguise the shock on his face. This was not just talent. It was a message, a cry, a miracle wrapped in melody. Under his breath, almost whispering, Simon said, "This boy is unbelievable. This is the voice that changes everything." It wasn't scripted. It wasn't for cameras. It was real, genuine admiration and disbelief. For the first time in a long time, Simon felt something deep, something rare, music hitting the heart with the full weight of truth. When Eldon finally opened his eyes and saw Simon Cowell standing only a few steps away, his entire body froze. For a moment, he thought he was imagining things. After all, boys from Tondo don't just stumble into world-famous talent judges on the streets of Makati. His small hand shook around the neck of his battered guitar, and the familiar fear of being chased away, scolded, or ignored rushed through him. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers, phones raised, people stunned that Simon Cowell himself had stopped for a street-singing Filipino boy. But before the excitement could overwhelm him, Simon gently lifted his hand and motioned for the crowd to quiet down. Then, in a calm voice filled with sincerity, he said, "It's okay, keep going." That simple sentence hit Eldon harder than anyone realized. No one had ever encouraged him like that. No one had asked him to continue anything. Growing up in poverty meant every day was a fight just to survive, and dreams, real dreams, were luxuries he didn't think he had a right to. But now, with tears forming beneath the streetlights, he held his breath and began singing again. His voice trembled at first, but as the melody flowed through him, the fear melted away. The hotel guests and passers-by stood utterly still, watching one of the most unexpected and emotional performances they had ever witnessed. Simon didn't stay standing. He lowered himself to one knee beside Eldon, showing a level of respect he rarely displayed, even on television. He leaned in closer, listening with complete focus. He wasn't judging. He wasn't analyzing. He was simply absorbing the purity of a voice that carried the weight of hunger, loneliness, and hope all at once. Every note Eldon sang seemed to break something open inside Simon, memories, emotions, vulnerabilities he usually kept hidden from the world. At one point, Simon took a deep breath, blinked hard, and looked away to steady himself. The boy's voice was not just good, it was life-changing. When the song ended, the entire street burst into applause. People clapped, some cried, and others recorded every second, knowing they had witnessed a moment that felt almost historic. Eldon lowered his guitar, terrified of Simon's reaction. But instead of criticism, instead of distance, Simon placed a firm, warm hand on the boy's shoulder. "You," he said softly, "have one of the most angelic, God-given voices I've ever heard." Eldon's eyes widened, tears spilling down his cheeks, tears of disbelief, relief, and overwhelming joy. Simon didn't stop there. He immediately called for a hotel staff member and told them to bring Eldon inside, to give him food, water, and a clean place to rest. For the first time in his life, the boy sat at a real table, ate a warm meal, and felt seen, truly seen. Simon began making calls, arranging help, promising opportunities. That night, the streets of Tondo felt a little farther away, and the world felt a little closer. The miracle wasn't just Eldon's voice, it was finally being heard.